Hi there everybody, Flash Drasman back with Suzerain. Just a heads up, I'm recording this back to back with Tuesday's episode, just so we all know. So if you have commented, hopefully I'll have replied, but I just won't have seen it now, because you won't have made the comment yet. But anyway, right, where were we? Decisions. Let's do this one, hang on, let's do this one first. We arrived in Enrica by train after being greeted by cheerful citizens and local government officials. We headed to City Hall. Here, a significant meeting about the L1 project would take place. Several construction companies sent their representatives to the City Hall. Gus arrived with a heartwarming smile. Hello, Mr. President, good to see you again. Appreciate you taking up my offer on stock investments. Armadan is a very promising corporation. If anything goes well, we will make solid returns. Thanks for arranging the opportunity. I will get you a 25-year Leroy Maroon if you make solid profits. My pleasure, Mr. President. I'll be looking forward to that Maroon because it is guaranteed. Simon Hall joined us after settling down. We moved to discussions detailing the L1 railway project. I came by train yesterday and it was a little uncomfortable. Besides starting our economic recovery, train journeys will be much more pleasant, Mr. President. Now that is given now that this project will improve so many things ranging from logistics to growth. You made the right choice for sure. I trust your economic plans, Simon. I'm glad to hear that. We should be able to slow down the recession if we finish this project successfully. I'm sure we will, because according to your document, many citizens will be employed because of business expansions. What kind of end results do we expect? What will it take to stop the recession? This is just this beginning. We will need to follow this project up with several other economic investment projects, which is dependent on our government budget, right? Yes. Simon shares the documents he was holding and found the ones he was looking for. I have the overview of the companies here. Simon handed over the files to me. Look at the files. So we've got, I looked at the files, 3 corporations listed. We've got Sordland Corporation, Estate, Underhaul Construction and Taurus Holding. I've reviewed the listed corporations. I also wrote down some notes and ideas. Which corporation do we talk about? Let's go with them first. On the last playthrough, I used them. Simon Hall was founded in 1946 and is owned by entrepreneur Garrett Frace. It is a new holding company who subsidies his cutting-edge technology from Arcadia to reduce construction costs and prices. They are known to provide for their workers who are part of the labour union of Sordland. They are very interesting corporations, especially because they're innovative construction methods but aren't suitable for large projects like these. Why should we pick Taurus? It would fit our election promise of switching to a free market economy. Awarding contracts to private corporations would be a step in the right direction. Taurus has completed fewer projects than the other companies, however. They are slightly faster and cheaper. It won several awards internationally for being one of the fastest growing advanced companies. They seem to lack the necessary experience. Exactly why take such a risk now when we need to play safe with companies at Underhaul? They always delivered for the government on time. The project manager of Taurus Holding mentioned that they would be able to finish a project within the allocated funding. They're the only company who found the budget sufficient, making them a cheap alternative. I don't feel confident with Holding because they haven't got the experience. Let's go with Sordland State Corporation. The representative of Sordland State Corporation, also known as the SSC, was founded in 1891. It is the main state corporation tasked with running the day-to-day construction systems for our country. It's the primary reason why our infrastructure is outdated as it is. We need adaptive construction companies. The disadvantage would be going against your election promise of moving away from the state-dominated economy. The Sordland State Corporation lacks a modern way of thinking. They also underperform with slow construction methods. Gus stopped and laughed. Look at the abysmal regional rail system. Do they have a wealth of knowledge? They do have a wealth of knowledge and infrastructure. I don't share the great admission for the SSC, but their track record clearly shows complete contracts with thousands of employees who have experience. According to the preliminary calculations of the SSC, they would need more resources to finish a project of this size. I'm on the fence about the SSC. Underhaul construction. The real estate construction giant was founded in 1925 that expanded during the economic boom of the 1930s. Picking up this corporation will fit our market economic policy. The CEO of Underhaul is Christian Shah, the mayor of Conract. He sold half his shares a few years ago but seemed very eager on the L1 bid. I have the chance to work with Underhaul Construction before in Hull, so they took several contracts for the central stage renovation and excelled at it. I think that they've been relatively well in the private sector. They have dominated construction industry with several successful projects. Nonetheless, they treated their workers below our working standard during the whole central station contract, which is troubling. We need to be able to trust the corporation. This is a basic requirement for the contract. I think their capabilities are very suitable for their one railway project. They worked on 2 infrastructure projects in Gelsund and 1 in Greater Sordland, and they were both worth $2 billion in total. Underhaul specifically mentioned their solid track record and highlighted the cost of the project would be more than expected for a project of the scale, but finished on time. Right. I'm not sure about Underhaul Construction. It's time to make a decision based on contracted to. So, right. They don't have experience of big projects. Right, so going there would be a risk. Cheap, but a risk. They're a big state corporation which would go against our policy of free market, and they're slow. However, these lot are, they tick the box of private sector. They've delivered several big projects. However, workers' rights would be undermined. However, we need the project done on budget. That's a risk. It's a chief ambitious risk. I'm going to go. So I went with this lot on my last playthrough, and they delivered late. It cost more, and they delivered late. And they decided I don't think they could cope with it. They weren't big enough. So that's why I'm kind of like, from my previous playthrough, I'm a little bit reluctant to go towards holding. Let's go back on the project. The track quickly shows completed contracts. Well, they also underperformed with their slow construction methods. We've got to go with Underhaul. Which you could be saying, why didn't you take that bribe then? Because if you're going to go, if I was going to go to cinema, I should have taken Walter Duck's bribe. However, that, for me, as I said last episode, taking his bribe, for me, would come back and hit me in the face. So I'm going to go with this lot anyway, I think. You've settled on Underhaul Construction. Good, that will say consistent to our economic strategy. Signed a certain section of the dossier fixes glasses. Though, Mr. President, the contract will be awarded to Underhaul Construction. Very glad that you made this choice. I can tell from my experience that you will be very satisfied with this company. The company will be notified that construction will begin immediately after. I think we're off to a good start. Next expectation for a grand opening ceremony are late next year. I'll be returning to my duty to see you soon, Mr. President. Thank you. This concludes the meeting. Meeting ended the rest of the day attending events in Enrica. It was very refreshing to attend cultural dances and hear the traditional Swedish music of the region. Right, so let's have a kind of scoot over here. Nothing to see over there. Nothing to see up here. Let's go and read the newspapers before anything else. Underhaul Construction have been awarded a 2-year contract for extensive infrastructure project as part of the L1 high-speed rail project in Sordland. Additional to ground investigation, Underhaul will be responsible for subgrade, bridge and track laying and provide design for all civil structures regarding ground retaining walls and earthworks for the railway. Underhaul said it could build the line at much lower cost according to the letter seen by The Economist, but the Interior Minister Gaff has warned letting Underhaul Construction build L1 will be extremely questionable. The L1 project involved widening and upgrading hundreds of kilometres of existing track between Lakehaven and Hulsholt. The high-speed rail will pass from Enrica and Gelsund as well, connecting the towns of Descartes, Anka and Vectra to the capital. Yeah, she's complained because she's old school. She would have gone with the state corporation because she's from the old guard. We need to watch here. Alright, that's that one. We've got one government budget left. Alright, let's go in here now. Report from Holsword. Leader FB Kasara Kirben has demanded an emergency call to address increasing political violence in the country. He stated that without declaration of emergency, Sordland will be destabilising the integrity of the country, will be damaged even further. Economic relief plan. With the assistance of the National Business Council, the Central Bank Seminole put forward a countrywide relief plan to mitigate the economic hardships that are being felt. We can either provide stimulus checks to people in need of bailout, or bail out businesses under the state under serious financial strain, or to not apply a plan at all. Bail businesses, or give people less bail businesses, because businesses provide jobs which then provide money, and we've got no budget left. Okay. Let's have a scoot around here. Right. Let's read the news and see what the news says. People forgotten again. Radical. Yeah. Just must be really convinced by the brainwashed capitalists around them, think business are running on a profit motive or care about workers at all. It's not a surprise, really. You know, it's radical. Business is alive and well. Yeah. Okay. Because basically, if businesses go business provide jobs, it's a no-brainer, really. Right. Dire. Oh, this is not going to be nice. Attend the funeral of Bernard Circus. Shocked the country, and his funeral will be held in Dire, and won a large crowd of sympathisers. Circus was not only a communist poet, but also an elected MP that had a voice. A state funeral has been organised to honour him. The question of whether the President and Ministry will go. We'll go. We'll see what effect that has. Dark clouds were looming over Dire. They looked daunting as our convoy started approaching the century-old cemetery. It looked like it was going to rain, certainly fitting weather for a funeral. Why is that fitting weather for a funeral? That's horrible. As expected, Bernard Circus is passing maintain its media traction, and all of Sordland were paying attention to the ceremony, especially to what I would say in my speech today. But we have Serge, we have arrived. Raindrops were running down the car window when Serge opened my door. I held an umbrella over my head. As soon as I got out, flashes from cameras blinded me. It's okay, Serge, I'll hold my own umbrella. As you wish, sir. He handed me an umbrella and started waiting next to the car with his own. Peter and Carl exited their own cars in the convoy. They made their way over to me. Anton, Mr. President, I just want to inform you that the perimeter is clear, secured completely. There's no one getting in or out without our knowledge. I should severely hope so. You better be right for your sake. I have taken necessary precautions. I'll personally make sure that we are all safe. Good, if anything happens to Anton, you'll have to answer to the First Lady. And trust me, Cole, you wouldn't want that. I think I'll have to do some attention from bereaved attendees. I don't think Jester Peter lowers his voice. You're alright, sorry. Started to ring. Several unintelligible voices were heard from Carl's radio. He stepped out to reply and returned shortly. We have a small problem, sir. A few, five to be exact. Red Youth members are here to attend the funeral. They apparently said they wish to pay their respects to the fallen comrade. Should we let them in? Do they pose a security threat? No, they were thoroughly searched. Looks like they were really here to attend the funeral. Let them in. As you command. Let's head over. They are about to start. We walked towards a crowd circle around the grave. Everyone in attendance was wearing black in mourning. The rain started to pour heavily. Bernard's widow and daughter were in the front row staring at the coffin with a mixture of disbelief, confusion, and above all a cold, unforgiving sadness. Both of their eyes were very red and swollen from weeping. Before taking my place to observe the ceremony, I gave my condolences to Bernard's wife and his daughter, who looked over at me. She reminded me of Diana. When the religious ceremony was done, I was invited by the priest to deliver my speech. I took to the podium. I felt like a lump in my throat. I couldn't get my daughter's eyes out of my head. Today we are mourning for Bernard Circus, our father, husband, and loyal servant of this country. No, he was a traitor. He was a spy for the United Contana. Towards the back of the car, I spotted members of the youth wearing red shirts, black armbands, and more of mourning on their arms. They seemed ruly and respectful, but respectfully bowing their heads. There were complete silence except for the sound of the raindrops. This is a great loss for all of us. I will confess that I disagreed with Bernard Circus when he said Tyler, but it doesn't mean that he deserved this. Our country can be a better place. Regardless of his ideology, this was a heinous act made towards a good man. We must end this cycle of violence. He was a true comrade that fought what he believed in. His ideal vision of Regardless of his ideology, this was a heinous act that made towards a good man. Yeah, I've got that one. We make sure this unfortunate events will never happen again. Circus had a dream of a united Sordland, and in these next few months we will fulfill his dream and band together. I interpret this attack as an attack on Sordland, by extension an attack on me personally. I promise you this, the blood of Bernard will not remain on the sacred ground of Sordland. I interpret this attack as an attack on Sordland, and by extension an attack against me personally. Let us mourn the passing of Bernard. Circus remember well. But hatred begets hatred. There's only one way to overcome this vicious cycle. We must unite against the evil of this world. The tears of the family he left behind have a price that needs to be paid. I will not stop until it is paid in full. I would like to. Do I want to do that? Do I want to do that? I've got to do it. Our strength is the will to survive, knowing that we will perish, knowing nothing will be absolute. We rise towards the sun. Those who died fighting. They are now buried in the sun. No need to mourn. There is a raid to the sun. They don't like to sing our songs. They are afraid of the dawn. They are afraid of hope. But our songs will be sung. Silence, please. During the silence, all that was heard were the ravens. Some attendees started clapping, some crying. The coffin was lowered into the grave by the gravekeepers after a couple of minutes. Bernard, Circus in the soil no more. As I bid farewell to Bernard, I want to close with the words, every sword lives by, and that Morgan West Corps. Everyone replied, Vector, sister, victory is close. With applause, I stepped down to the podium. It was time to leave. He would have thanked me with a soft and defeated voice before we dispersed. On the way back to my car, I couldn't get the eyes of Bernard's daughter, nor the faltering voice of her wife out of my head. Would Diana, Monica and Frank look the same way if something happened to me? I'd hope so. Peter put his hand on my shoulder. That was a good speech. I said some respect from his voice. Thank you, I meant it. I know you did. Come on, it's time to go. We've got work to do. He was right, we had work to do, so much more to do. I realised that rain had stopped, and I looked up. The black clouds were dispersing, sunbeams enlightened our surroundings. As someone once said, even the darkest night will end and the sun will rise. Hope was still on the horizon. That seemed to go well. Right, let's have anything happening out in the world. Messages before we go and read the papers. There's someone down there. Nope. Back over here. Right, let's look at the newspapers first. So see what that's about. They're afraid of hope, but our songs will be sung. Huge crowds of mourners, including President Rayne and other senior soldiers, have joined for a rare display of unity, pointing to half died to bid farewell to Bernard Circus, a poet and politician who was shot and killed at the gates of the Marine Palace after Rayne's inauguration bill. With hundreds of police officers in riot gear on duty, traffic was barred for all major thoroughfares. The normally chaotic section of the city took a sober atmosphere. Malenevest's anthems played from loudspeakers along the Freedom Avenue. Soldiers and citizens of various ethnicities stood shoulder to shoulder, many in tears. Others leaned out of the windows of the balcony railings to watch the procession. President Rayne gave a unified message to all of the Sordland by attending the funeral. He paid his respects to Circus and met with his close relatives. Rayne also made an emotional speech that touched thousands of attendees. He finished his speech with a quote from Circus. That seemed to go down well. Sordland today. Scenes of compassion, unity and respect were recorded during the solemn funeral of Bernard Circus, which the VP and the President attended. President Rayne had shown great respect and grace by the Red Youth members as to enter the funeral to give their final goodbyes to their fellow traveller. This shows of compassion. This show of compassion is what the country deserves at this period of uncertainty. The news of the Rayne President indicates the division of the country may soon be healed. That did go well. Diplomatic situation. Okay. Door opened. So we're in Lockhaven, when the Blue Mansion Lockhaven hosting us for an important diplomatic gathering. The door opened. David Wishy, who once a lecturer to me, now Minister of Foreign Affairs, gently made his way towards my desk. May I sit down, Mr. President? Legal formalities aside. Yep. All right, I'm getting used to I'm still getting used to your new position, Anton. He slowly sat down, taking care not to aggravate up the arthritis in his knees. He always had an air of gravitas about him, and his old age only served to deepen that. After he settled himself, he regarded me with delight, his blue eyes sparkling. Look at you, Anton, the 4th President of Sordland. What a privilege for me. I still remember the first day you took my classes at Dye University of Culture. I remember how hard you worked on the Agnolia trade agreement together. Carl's late nights at the ministry to finalise. It was an experience for sure. We signed the best deal yet, and the good slew of trade adventures of Agnolia. It was even somewhat unfair from my point of view. Somehow the explicable ebb and flow of life has led us here, to the position where we can change the course of history. This is our opportunity to shape the future, and we will do precisely that. I'm looking forward to a new foreign policy. Stick off again, this time for longer. How's your health? Oh, I haven't had any big complications except the usual after the heart attack earlier this year. The health complications aren't a hindrance of my work, of course, but thanks for asking. It's not a blinking heart attack. How's the Rayne family? We're slowly getting used to the routine. As time passes, I realise that more family is the most important thing in life. We must take care of them. The door opened. SF and Lucian joined us for the briefing as the toll case clock hit the hour mark. Peter was missing. I wondered if he was late for all the drinking he did at the party in Lockhaven. We'll talk more later. President Rayne, welcome everyone. How was it travel to Lockhaven? A little bumpy due to some turbulence, however, a military cargo plane that landed at Lockhaven International Airport. I took the train. It was a little slow, but I still recommend it from the beautiful landscape. I had the possibility to work on a couple of things during the ride. From what I've heard, it will be much faster in the near future once the L1 high-speed railway is finished. Exactly. It hopefully be one of our major achievements. Well then, since Mr. Vecton doesn't seem to be coming today, I think we're ready to start. I'll start providing a brief review of our current status with our neighbours. What would you like to start with? I said about Agnolia. Our brotherly nation to the northeast, Agnolia, are still diplomatic and online, are probably one of the most democratic systems between our neighbours. And economic stagnation is worrying for them. Their primary issue is heavy reliance on foreign investment from us. Agnolia is our most friendly neighbour. We have been allies for the longest time after Wurmberg annexed Dome. This fact needs to be part of the equation. Unsurprisingly, the Estonian Prime Minister Martin van Hutten is expecting better cooperation with a new fairer trade deal with us. It was one of his election mandates. A more comprehensive trade deal sounds better for both sides. We'll think about success. The matter is still on the table. We could see credit as allies if we make concessions. A new Wurmberg, in a new agreement, Wurmberg is a common threat. Give me a second. We could, secure them against Wurmberg. Great. Additionally, the largest number indicates that currently 1 million or so Anglo-Swedish citizens live in the Gullian region of Sordland. Which creates a link between foreign policy and internal affairs. These people suffer socio-economically, which led to crime and other problems. In addition, relaxed immigration policy was Agnolia's main requests, which is unacceptable. Most of the migrants in our country haven't even assimilated into this culture. Adding more won't help. Supportive. I would rethink that matter seriously because it a great influence on our society and values. Again, old school. We should remember that we promised to keep our immigration laws relaxed in the election campaign. Well, and next. It is tumultuous in the south as always. Victor Smolak is expanding his powers amongst protests from Wazak people. However, he's quite positive about the normalisation of relationships between our countries. Reports indicate that they have been warming up to Kantan and international aid. As you know, Wayland's stability was always a concern for the region. But if we want to help them, we must not treat refugees like we did in the 30s. I still can't stomach the inhumanity of those people suffered. A trade agreement would then improve stability of mutual trade, will help such a disorganised state. Not sure what we could do to help them. Sordland paid enough by housing millions of refugees. They will civil war no more. That would be many bargain chips discussed, but one of them could be a new partner in the region. We could invest in stability there. Our main goal should be to avoid refugee crisis like the 1920s. That civil war had a major security and economic repercussions on Swedish soil. One of the main demands of President Smolak was to tighten our migration laws so the political refugees don't escape to Sordland. There was been a huge purge that pushed many blooders to flee to Bergia. It is definitely troubling. Government outpost has regained its importance due to this. I am sure you remember that winter border outpost, Mr. President. I remember the despair in the relatives' eyes as we forced escorted them back to the Welland border. It is our international interest to prevent formation of a failed state on our western border. Welland has been increasingly aligning itself towards communist alliance. Another point to analyse. I'll tell you more about Vagsland. Our cousins of old across Marky and Sea wish to have a good relationship with us. As we know, Vagsland is a socialist republic. We're aligned with United Contana, their important regional partner. It is significant. It is also the most significant sea power in East Timocopia. We had hostile relations with them after several wars in the 19th century, which we wouldn't want to experience again. Recently, the relationship has warmed thanks to Emmerich Hegel. As a result, diplomatic talks can be conducted in the future. It is not easy. It is not easy to forget about the Great Fire of Conriat. Thousands of lives were lost during that day. Breaking ice with Vagland would be good if we are to rise diplomatically. We shouldn't take on any sides in the regional powers. Breaking ice diplomatically. I agree it could provide eventual allies in my opinion. The situation of the region necessitates that we find allies. We haven't been in good relations with us for the past 200 years. Recently, they have also joined the Communist Canton and Security Pact, subjugating themselves to United Cantana. On top of that, territory issues fly up between Agnolia and Vagsland because of the heritage of the island. The Swedish Navy is very concerned with this volatile situation. Lucien looks like they would. Unfortunately, billions of soldiers run worth of cargo is transported close to Vagsland near maritime borders in the Murky Sea and the Grey Strait. This causes significant risk to our import and exports in the case of a deterioration in relations. The strait is of high strategic value to us. I said the Navy is keeping an eye on the situation from a distance. Right, we are actively monitoring the sea routes and cargo ships. For now, there's no immediate threat, but I don't know what can happen in the future. Let's move on. Two important neighbouring countries remain, Lesbia and Rumburg, which we'd like to hear about first. Rumburg. David, now to the most troublesome nation, Rumburg, a constitutional monarchy led by Beatrice Livingston. It will be self-governing ruler of all of North Macopia. She has been Queen Rumburg since 1921. She reigned as a country monarch through major political changes and centralisation of power in the kingdom, secular reform. As you know, Napoleon, the Executive Dome, which executed by in a single night. No, that is the true. I'd advise caution and calculated action against Rumburg. Our military must be prepared. The threat is real. They are strong and they have motivation as well as the means to damage us. We shouldn't give them any reason to pursue aggression. Rumburg is and always will be a roguelike state. Nothing they could have done about them. We must prevent them interfering in our affairs. They have shown similar behaviour in their neighbouring countries before. We must be cautious. While Thornburg openly denies such claims, their past and current actions make it clear they want to destabilise us. The weapons cast by our military agency clearly shows that their goals are: our military must be steadfast and our diplomacy valiant. ESEF looks stern and full of resolve. I think the threat of Wurmberg is one of our top priorities, you can be assured of that. We are always in dialogue with our Wurmberg and ambassador to make sure the channel is open to solve disputes. We could use our aggressive attitude against them by convincing the international community. Lucien grabbed the Lakevan Times newspaper and put his finger on the article about the latest diplomatic incident. Their abrupt announcement they are closing the Wurmberg consulate in Lakevan is another step in their escalation. What about Lesbia? Our southern neighbour is aligning itself more and more with Arcasia. Lesbia is currently led by Prime Minister Patricio Alvarez. They are the jewel of the continent and the second largest economy in Macopia. Though wealthy, Lesbia suffers from excessive economic inequality. Our past relations have been great, but during the last decade their investments in Sordland dwindled due to our instability. Aligning with the richest in the regional relation could be beneficial. Lesbia is a single giant, we should not wake them. They keep turning a blind eye towards the region, thinking Lesbia is above it all. It could, but it would also mean we would draw closer to the Arcasian bloc near the Arcasian Treaty Organisation. I am certain that the recession has a lot to do with their retraction of investments. Once they see that money isn't the picture, they vanish rather quickly because they are capitalists. They have shown a selfish attitude during the Welland Civil War by closing their borders and funneling refugees across into Sordland. Lucien cleared his throat. Our values are too different, Lesbia. It would be hard to see eye to eye. The capitalism of Lesbia is an inspirational means to look at their economic power. Let's push this here while far we get with it. Everything comes at the cost in Lesbia. The cost is wealth and inequality, but business people are getting richer and richer. There are hundreds of very privileged oligarchs who invest inside and outside Lesbia. Some made significant business investments in Benfi and Varglan. This covers the overview of the situation. We'll move on to our trade choice and the responses when there's diplomatic escalation. The sun began to set over the hill surrounding Lakevan. The team was ready to give advice on the new trade initiative and respond to the latest diplomatic incident with Wurmberg. Peter arrived at the usual, must have been drinking from last night. I therefore excuse my delay. I'm sure I didn't miss anything we didn't already know. You're supposed to part of this meeting also on time. Punctuality is important. We're talking very serious subjects here. Yeah. Excuse me, it won't happen again. He's a liability, I reckon. A friend, but also a liability. The Vice President will be part of the trade delegation, so it is great to have input on that subject, but also on the Wurmberg incident. There are two issues at hand. What should we tackle first? Let's diplomatic first. Wurmberg Consul Sir Bran Harrington announced the closure of the 20-year-old consulate. Now their diplomatic staff is leaving the city to go back to Thornborough. He blamed lack of security in Sordland due to the assassination and subsequent protests. Excuse me, having a drink. But it's clear, it's obvious that it's just making excuses. Yeah, of course it is. Bastards. First choice, they close their consulate and then blame our security. Excuse my language there. The security situation is under call. They are playing with us. Agree that other diplomatic missions have worked with our security units to increase protection of staff and buildings. The neglect of President Alfonso and the chaos of the elections delayed our diplomatic efforts. There are two Wurmberg diplomatic missions left in Sordland. One is the consulate in Dyer and the other is the embassy in Holsword. We are accustomed to the usual rhetoric, but this is far more serious. They are playing with fire. Look at what Welland destabilisation has done to the region. Sordland breaking apart would tear Macopia apart. Masako, I've never seen our Wurmberg relations suffer so much. This is a previous low point with our annexation of Dome. ISEF was furious. He barely kept himself from slamming the desk. There are worrying developments like smuggled arms and the build up near the border. Our military must be buffed up to stand up against the original pilot Lundberg. We either respond to the aggressive act with a diplomatic accommodation or we retaliate by closing our consulate in Dome. I would say that the next station would be risky this early in our presidency. We should focus on creating a negative image of Lundberg on the international scene. The people of Sordland must be protected no matter what the cost. I say respond equally. By closing the Sordland embassy in Dome, they think they can bully us, and they were never so wrong. Write an official diplomatic response condemning these zombies, like declare the Lundberg arms destabilisation. Declare that Lundberg arms aims to destabilise Sordland and the region. Yes, sticking to them there. As your Mr. President, I will begin work immediately forming the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Swaying the international stage is a key in long-term strategy. I wish we had reacted more strongly, but if we don't confront them, we will keep escalating the situation. On the other hand, I am glad that we are taking the far more cautious road. We should move on to the trade initiative. Our primary goal will be successful sign a trade agreement with one of our smaller neighbours. We have two options: start negotiations with our partner Magnolia, or form a new cooperation with Welland. Let's go with this lot first. We have dealt with the trade deal with Welland. Dealing with factory court Welland has its positives and negatives. Although it will be lucrative in the short term, there are risks associated with dealing with such a country. They are proposing a co-investment projects and a no-tariff agreement. They are also offering oil in return for attracting foreign capital interest from Sordland. However, it is possible that there will be an international ramifications for getting close to a country like Welland. All in all, this is very lucrative for us. However, we need to think about the consequences. I say don't support the decision to become friendly with Welland. We carried out burdens for decades. Their migrants flooded our country and they are now expected to do it from us. Maintaining influence Welland could be useful. Yes, it is risky, but think about our influence on an undeveloped region like that. We could also sell more products and enter their market easily. I'm of the opinion that this is simply too risky. Yes, we would gain resource and immediate capital, but I'm afraid of the consequences. You might, it's too risky. I tend to agree. If we wish to go forward a deal when the time comes, there is the topic of immigration to consider. Victor Smolik is a known isolationist. I promise to keep our immigration policy relaxed will not help at all. He blames us for bringing Western interests to the region. He wants his political opponents to flee here. He also doesn't want his political opponents to flee here. Basically, he's a glorified dictator. Personally, I don't like the idea of getting too close to Welland. Me too. Agreed. I still think we should give them a try. First off, the first review on the opposition is more diplomatic than economic. Although, of course, we can't forego added economic value. Acknowledge an old ally and a valuable trade partner. The point where in the early negotiations is our steel trade. They are demanding that we buy their steel for a higher price. That's because they think that the deal is far too unbalanced as it is. The second main demand is privileged access to our agricultural market. If we are to fulfil their demands, in return they are offering full alliance with Sordland against Lundberg. Look at the current advances of Lundberg near our borders, and a coalition against Lundberg would prove extremely useful. Obviously there will be consequences around to our full alliance, mainly issues around the Helgi Islands. Vagsland has made clear intentions on taking over the island one way or another, and entering military alliance with Magnolia will make them furious. I want to state my support for the decision to stick to our old ally Magnolia. Even though I disagree with the demands to relax on migration, we have cooperated with them on many issues in the past. Magnolia is a solid partner for us. Dave, the President, worked on the previous comprehensive trade agreement in the 1930s. The obvious subjects will be like, we still need to tackle like our economics and trade records and what to do with immigration. My opinion is that this is a good deal we should go for. The new agreement promises to improve the existing relationship. The downside that we need to make concessions over the eventuality of a trade deal. I would be open to creating a new agreement that would tie up all sides. This is not an option because we want to get closer to the West in our promises of the election. So that's kind of like, yeah, let's see if we get a like, because obviously it keeps Mr. Potato Head happy. That would be the best outcome. If we decide that Magnolia is a good option, another point is that they have a very democratic system. After recent elections, the PM has a mandate to arrange a fair deal with us. It's now supportive of relaxed immigration. Since we said we keep immigration relaxed, it will help us. Regardless, if we are going to increase our regional influence at previous vessels, we need to make amends with our neighbours. Ultimate decision will be up to you as always. My campaign promises to steer Sordland towards the west, and Acacia will have an effect on our negotiations, especially with Welland. As you know, the current affairs of Welland are partly resulting in Catalan's support of Victor Smolak. This will be a problem, but definitely worth trying. As I know, the promise have made them cautious, which might make it harder to get a good deal. We also need to consider the effects of our economic doctrine plan. The fact that we're headed towards a market economy will have an influence. Good negotiators optimise the interest, which makes the difference between trivial, allowing both sides to reach a deal. Very true, Mr. Vecton. We have a lot of time to prepare before we schedule this to Vela and Agnolia. Our risk is a brief view of our current situation. Our trade delegation will begin to work towards the end of the year. We expect final negotiations and signs to happen next year. I'm very much looking forward to visiting Stalport and Vaklovitz with party animals like David and Simon. Haha. Peter laughed as if now his eyes and stared at him. Well, that concludes our meeting, Mr. Rayne. Good work. I'll take my leave then. The meeting concluded and the team dispersed. Our diplomatic action plan had officially begun. Okay, let's have a quick look at who wants to speak to us. Nothing from the other countries. Nope. Alright. What one we've got? Let's set it up here first of all. Young Sword members claim that the government did 10 young Sword member Narvik claimed that he has connections with the government. We have been investigating the truth of this claim, but we're unable to find any leads. Down here, let's have a look at the news. Emergency in Eureka may be announced. Women news who has reported that extensive chaos exists in the city, called an emergency directive authorising security powers. We report 20 police officers heavily wounded, 2 police burnt down, several shot. The city is in a state of emergency. We are trying to restore order. The local gendarmerie began assisting me after the emergency cast was made. They will assist local authorities with keeping the streets safe. Oh, blimey. That's not a good development. Welfare issues in Narble has been steeply declining last decade. We uncovered the hard truth of residents themselves. Metro state cities, regional lack of healthcare services, just to get to the point with the rural region. Basically, yeah, that's going to pot. Unrest continues. More unrest. Radical. We need democracy. Okay, that's more stuff there. Sordland condemns closure. Fine. Nothing to see in that we don't already know about. Briefing on the reforms. Okay, let's go with this one then. I'll come a little early to the meeting before anybody showed up. We had scheduled a meeting to discuss the progress room committee to the new constitution. I took a seat on the centre chair in a vacant meeting room as I waited for them to show up. The reforms were slowly becoming the most significant expectation of the government. We were changing Sol's constitution for 29. Most people know this blame the constitution for outstanding problems of the country. Other than the reformists in the assembly had been getting louder about the demands, what I knew for sure was that I needed something that would encroach the chaos point followed me. Meanwhile, Lucy and Peter and Naya were leading the committee to prepare the initial draft of the constitution amendments. I was intrigued to hear the results. A knock on the door, it was Lucian. Good afternoon, sir. Lucian arrived on the hour mark. His punctuality could almost be described as being obsessive. Are you waiting behind the door to come to the exact second? I'm sorry, sir. Forget it. You seem to have the exact second for all meetings. Punctuality is important for me, so I'm just doing my job. Oh, okay. Took a seat at the table, took out a bunch of documents, spread them on the long table. We began the meeting as Susan, Mrs. Morgan and the Vice President arrived. We finally got some results from the Reform Committee. How does it look? Well, the situation is quite complicated, but I'm sure we'll make it work. We just like we accomplished many things before. We'll go over the details regarding his constitution in the meeting. A few minutes later, Peter and Nia also arrived. After a short chat, everybody sat down and took their notes. I knew it was going to be a long meeting. There's lots to talk about. The future of this process There's a lot to talk going about the future of this. Let's start by apologies. There's a lot to talk going about. Yeah, there's a word missing in there, but future versus. Let's begin to tackle the points of the contention. Mr. President, our committee meetings have been really fruitful, and we already started work on the constitution draft together with the reformists. They demand a little too much, but I have successfully with friends worked to create a realistic draft that could potentially go through the Supreme Court. A little, they demanded we write the whole constitution. The requests were definitely not outrageous, just not realistic in today's circumstances, just because it wouldn't pass the Assembly. Nonetheless, I'm glad we're reaching a common ground already. If we can reach an agreement with the reformers, we will be very strong in the Assembly to propose change. Can we reach? Can we get a two-thirds majority? If we can get friends elected to work with us on this, only problem with uniting our own party, we will never be able to get the NFP to work with us. We need a majority of 136 in the Assembly to vote in our favour. The PFJP's full support of 76 will easily surpass the 166. It will be tough to unite the USP with all the divisive rings that has formed. We must make them follow you loyally. We'll convince the Leeds and his former's right wing have been supporting you. He already weighed in heavily in the committee meetings. His insignificance. After his session, he joined the calls for the Congress to elect new president nominee and abandon support. Okay, so he's clearly a reformer. However, the Conservatives would be tough to break. The influence is still living strong in the party. We will eventually remove his influence. How many votes do they have? Around 40 seats. There are many unaligned people. Some of your loyalists may decide to show their true faces too. So we need as many Conservative supporters and only one person who is key. And there is only one person who is key to make them back us. Gloria Tory. She's well respected by the Solists. She'll be our biggest obstacle in the Assembly, and her demands will be extensive. Forces to think she might be in Orso's pocket. She'll be tough to bake, but we'll need her help to get the Conservative support. Is it possible to pass the Supreme Court? They brought the biggest obstacle. Even if we pass the Assembly, the Chief Justice will do their best to block our amendments. We need to get 6 of the 11 judges to vote for the proposal, but Mr Hawke has enormous influence over the judges. Mr Hawke is the Chief Judge and old guard, we want to call him. We should reach out to support judges in secret. Some of them might be ready to break ranks to supporters. All means are to be considered in order to succeed. According to the Constitution, I'm a member of the Supreme Court, which means we already have one vote. All means are to be considered in order to succeed. Why should you take them back by the statement? 2 of the judges are friends of mine and have similar opinions about the reforms. Consider them with me. That's 3. We only 3 of 11. Who else would be support the reforms? I think Judges Edmonds can be swayed in an extension. Mr Dalton and Mr Merton. They weren't really blinded by the Solist ideology. Give me a second. Yes, those 3 don't seem to be working directly with Chief Justice Hawke. If we can get Isabel Edmonds, we might get 6 votes, and that's our best bet. What are the demands? We should run down each of them main demands of the committee and get your input first, and Miss Morgan can explain them further. We'll start with the first red line. The constitution will fix loopholes regarding the President's absolute veto powers. Even Mr Rector put on a whole show about why veto shouldn't be completely removed. The committee almost unanimously agreed on fixing loopholes, thus limiting presidential vetoes. My suggestion would be to add a clause detailing the methods the Assembly would override a veto with some sort of supermajority. One person who'd no doubt to block the rest. I stand agreement with Mr Rector, the veto should be removed. Which way to go? And of course detailing assembly of our veto. He decided it's important to get a balanced picture. We are making history change in a 20 organisation by Sol. About the gist of the new constitution will remove the Supreme Court's right to vote on legislation. This is another point which is unanimously agreed on by all parties. Yeah, basically, Torpor will establish this rule to protect the 1929 Constitution. We all know the judges are in his pawns. Constitution amendments will be difficult to accomplish with a form like this, particularly because we will keep the 2/3 vote system to be able to propose a change. However, the judges will not have a final set of amendments. It's very difficult to accomplish with a form like this because I can't. This is already what we do. I can't even. We need the court. We need that court to even pass this change. I can't disagree with that. Glad to hear it. Apart from those two critical points, they have major other demands. They want reform. The point procedures of the Minister Richter clarified the Assembly should have a say on the formation of the Council of Ministers. That is also something the majority of our party also supports. Well, Mr. Richter talked about abolishing the Member of Honour rights for Torpor and Sol, gives him absolute immunity and makes him a permanent member of the Assembly. Well, that's controversial, and I doubt the USP would like that. The immunity of the justices, the impeachment of the President, limiting the power of presidential decrees, all of this came up in the committee meetings. Yes, reformers expect big changes, while a faction of our USP are not very keen on pushing these changes are too great. I say keep everything in the middle ground. It's a safest bet. No need to agitate anybody too much. There are valid concerns we need to look at. I'll keep working with them, keep you updated. Guys like Mr. Rayne decides we'll need to work together to push this agenda. Now we have a better picture of our intentions here. I will start reaching out to my contacts and make a draft that works for us. I'll present you with input to the committee in a few months. You should have a draft on your desk and make the final changes yourself. I think this is yet another fruitful meeting, sir. Together we'll democratise Sordland, and you're my full support, and ours too, of course. Yes, sir, thank you. I think this is where we'll call it, sir. Have a good day. They left the room. That was exhausting. Right, where are we now? Let's see what this is. Right. I'm thinking, let's have a look. Anybody else want any little updates to come around the region? Nope. Alright. Let's have a look. With this is going to be an interesting meeting. And it's going to be an interesting meeting that's going to happen next week, because we're close to the hour mark. I want to keep this manageable and leave it on a bit of a cliffhanger, because that's going to be a difficult conversation. And then we've got some updates from the old railway project. But anyway, I think I'll leave it there. A bit of a cliffhanger. And I will go say thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. As ever, let me know how you've been getting on. The more I play this game, the more I could play this 3 or 4 times and come up with different endings, different things to do every single time. Because I've seen things happen on this place that didn't happen on the first one. It's going to be interesting. The constitutional change, the constitutional reform is going to be difficult to get through, very difficult to get through. But anyway, we shall go on that journey together. Anyway, like I said, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, because it helps us out immensely. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks very much. Bye.